Is it giving tortured poets department? Is it?
No, it's just Grumpy Sunshine all over again.
But like, what if we swerved and this video we're talking about our thoughts on the new Taylor Swift album?
It's not as good.
Hot take?
It's not even hot. It's not as good. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Come on. So we're back to my nemesis, Goodreads. Part 2. Goodreads Best of 2023. Were they actually good or not?
So today we're going to go over the remaining categories, which were mystery and thriller, romance, horror, memoir, autobiography, and history.
All right, so first up, we got Holly by Stephen King. First of all, do I think that this should have been the horror winner for 2023? No. It's actually about this detective girl, and she's basically going through all these different cases that definitely have a horror element to them. In this case, it was cannibals. One of the main reasons why I found the book entertaining is because the overall plot is very kind of riveting. It does have kind of fast-paced action. The only reason why the book turned me off was because it is probably the most political book I have ever read in my entire life. To the point that it almost felt like Stephen King was saying, hey, other 50% of the population of the United States that doesn't agree with me, just don't bother reading this book. I don't like you. I don't want you to read it. And I want you to feel that with every single character that I write in this book, just know that I have personal disdain towards you, because that's what it actually feels like. Every single character is basically just throwing jabs and jabs and jabs at the other political side that obviously Stephen King does not agree with. And this book centers around the entire social reaction to COVID, especially in the more northern states and the more urban states like New York City and stuff like that, where it almost feels like after we got over the entire COVID ordeal, I don't know if I want to read books and stories that center around being back there again. I feel like I kind of want to move on with my life and never have to remember how it was to have to wear a mask all the time and like elbow bump people. Like, I just don't want to go back and relive that. And this book literally wants to just dwell in that entire, like, almost as if we should still be doing that. And it's just not a part of my life that I genuinely want to relive.
We started dating during COVID. How can you say you don't want to remember that time in your life? It's the time you fell in love with me.
Yeah, and I got to work from home for the first time, which was great. So for that reason,
I feel like everything you read lately is like uber political.
No, this one was just on another level. It's almost as if, people you disagree with also like to read horror books. And I'm not necessarily saying that I agree or disagree with everything that happened in that book or the political elements in that book. I'm just saying that when you're going that far into the book, it is off-putting. And the
thing is, Stephen King doesn't have to worry about that kind of stuff anymore. He's such a renowned author. He's going to have his diehard people. He's going to sell every single copy of any book. He can write the alphabet, and he can write the alphabet in every single language backwards in incorrect order, and people will still read it.
Most likely. Anyway.
Were you done with Stephen King? I've never read a single Stephen King. And I don't plan to.
The Dark Tower series is the only.
Oh, yes. I promised you I would read that. So I am going to read it.
You promised to me you would read that when we first started dating, and we're married now. We're married now.
Alrighty, so let's go into the thriller winner, which was The Housemaid Secret by Freida McFadden. I am shocked to say that it managed to shock me again. This was very good. This was another hit by Freida. While this one was very much in the same kind of pattern and rhythm as the first book, this is a perfect example of how if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So in The Housemaid's Secret, we return to Millie a few years after the events of the first novel. And in the recent years, she's kind of developed a reputation for helping women out of precarious and abusive relationships.
So you just spoiled the entire first book.
So we're coming to a point in her story where she's trying to end these extracurricular activities, but she gets hired as a maid for a successful businessman who says that he needs a maid because his wife is recovering from an illness and she is in the bedroom resting, so Millie should not talk to her, bother her. And so Millie comes across the wife, and then all hell absolutely breaks loose. I was so surprised by the twist in the middle of this book. I didn't see it coming. It was so well done. And then towards the end of the novel, I did see where it was going, and I was able to predict the final twist at the end, so it made it so satisfying. Like I've said about these novels in the past, it's not a literary masterpiece. It's not written extremely well. However, they are just so entertaining. So do I think this deserved to be the best thriller of 2023? No. But considering the style of writing, considering how much everyone loved the first one, I can totally see how this won the popularity contest to become the best thriller. I am positive there were better thrillers that came out last year.
Can you think of a single better thriller that came out last year?
I personally liked The Only One Left. I just felt there was a lot more layers to that story, and it was written with an ambiance that was very satisfying. This is very one note, surface level shock for shock value purposes only, but it was still a lot of fun. And again, I read it in like 5 hours. The moment I start reading these books, I just don't want to put them down.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Considering the fact that I just finished reading The Teacher by, Freida McFadden. So I do see what you're talking about, and what I especially loved of that book, which by the way, this is kind of a spoiler because we're probably going to do a video on that specific book coming up, but I especially like the fact how she just kept the concept so simple. There's such few characters. She does not want to throw 15 different characters and five different lines going on at the same time, and even by the end of it you still manage to be somewhat surprised and have enough complexity in it for it to be super engaging.
And it keeps you riveted and on the edge of your seat. And actually the pacing, she leaves a cliffhanger at every single end of the chapter, and the chapters are like 3 pages. So it's like there's no way to put the book down because you're like, well, now I need to find out what happened here, and the next chapter is only 3 more pages. Might as well keep reading until you're done.
It's kind of like Dan Brown.
Yeah, Dan Brown's like that.
Well, yeah. But chapters are like, like 3, and they switch around.
Well, you know what I can't stand with Dan Brown is that he will switch the point of view every other chapter. So it's like you finish the chapter, and then I find myself like, okay, but I need to know what happened with the... And I try to skip and find the chapter where the character's story continues. This one, sometimes if it's that good and you need to know, she just anticipates that, and the next chapter is in the same point of view. It's so satisfying.
Next up, the history and biography winner, which is The Wager by an author I can't remember. But anyway, I'm going to put it right here anyways. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to look. Okay, anyway.
David Grann.
The book basically centers around a shipwreck during pirate times. No. It's fine. It's like 1500s. Who knows? Anyway.
Pirate time.
Pirate times. All historically accurate. The era. Pirate times. A British ship that goes on the hunt for a Spaniard ship that is holding untold amount of treasure. Eventually, on its quest, the British ship shipwrecks, and it is the story of the events that follow, which are pretty harrowing, pretty interesting. The unfortunate part of that book is that it is written so unbelievably dry with so many different characters, so many different facts that you almost feel like you need to have scantrons to remember who this person is, what they're doing, what their relationship to the ship is, what their function is. So ultimately the downfall of the book that I feel is that it tries to tell the story as if it was a history book, which ends up being very dry, very uninteresting, very undramatic. Just imagine if you had the story of Hercules, for example, which is super heroic, super epic, but it was being told to you by someone who is monotone. Yeah, it's not going to hit any of the high notes. It's going to be super boring, and you're not going to care about it.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like that book we read about the World Fair.
It was The Devil in the White City. That was another example of that. This book is also written by the same author that wrote Killers of the Summer Moon or the Flower Moon, which was turned into a big movie. And that book actually felt so much more interesting, so much more dramatic and engaging than this one, simply because I also think that it was a lot simpler. Do I think this was possibly the best? Yeah, it probably actually was the best. But it's probably just because it's in a genre that doesn't have a lot of competition, to be honest with you. Not to say that I didn't enjoy the story. I really, really did. But it just got really convoluted at times. I felt like it wasn't focused enough on a specific characters. and it just was told in a way that it's just matter of fact after matter of fact.
Well, I mean, that's the genre, right? It's a historical book. It's literally talking about the history of something. If it has some sort of narrative, it turns into more of a historical fiction.
Okay, well, whatever. It was kind of boring. Sorry. And I don't understand how you make a shipwreck, crazy story sound boring, but it was.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a ton of true crime documentaries and a ton of Netflix, series that are about true stories that are, exactly what happened. And those can be riveting. So there has to be a way. Let's jump to romance, which was Happy Place by Emily Henry. I feel like...
You didn't like that book.
I did. I gave it 4 stars. Maybe in retrospect, maybe it's a 3-star, but...
In our tier list, when we tier ranked that book, I don't even think you knew where to put it.
I was like torn between a 4-star and a 3-star. But I'll round up because, it's Emily Henry and the cover is adorable. No, I'll round up because I really did sympathize a lot with the character and I related to her a lot. Happy Place was about a couple that has been together since college. They're part of a very tight-knit friend group, and they're all about to go on this friend vacation that they do every year. However, this couple has recently broken up, but they haven't told their friends yet. So now they have to go on this...
Life-changing. It's like life-changing plot.
Okay, for sure, my review on Goodreads literally says nothing life-changing. But it's a sweet story. Listen, so they go on this vacation and they have to pretend that they're still engaged.
No.
And can you imagine how hard that is to kind of go with the person you're technically still in love with then?
And then while pretending that they are no longer together, they rediscover the reason why they were together in the first place.
Emily Henry is so good. Brilliant. Listen. It was a very sweet story. Loved the romance. There were a lot of layers to this story. Like every single one of the friends was dealing with, their own things. But this is coming from a group of people who are about to be, they're either in their late 20s or early 30s. So it's like coming to terms with the fact that we aren't, kids anymore. We have actual shit that's going on in our lives right now. We have other priorities other than being, a tight-knit group of friends. And just the reality that as you grow up, you start to lose those friendships because your priorities start to shift and change. So I kind of really related to that, side of the story because it's exactly kind of where we are in life, where, I'm about to be 30, he's 32, things, have shifted. And where, when we first started dating, we had this like really, really solid group of friends that we would see more than pretty much anybody else. And, you start growing up, priorities change. And people change. So I really did empathize with the main character going through all of this on top of a breakup of the guy that she'd been with for years. So I really liked the way Emily Henry handled that. And Emily Henry is a great author. I've always loved the style of her writing. It's something that I pick up and I don't put down until it's done. She comes out with one every single year. Like they say, she's the one who has the minimalist covers that you always joke about. And every year it's a different color. Today is April 24th. Yesterday, Emily Henry's new book, Funny Story, came out, which is Emily Henry's book of 2024. She comes out with one in April or like March or spring every single year. You're starting to anticipate the story. It's a different kind of rom-com. Is there anything groundbreaking or new or life-changing? Like I said, no. But it's nice to read by the beach, and I can really appreciate that as a palate cleanser between bigger novels. But did it deserve to win the romance?
As someone who actually does like the romance genre, who is invested in it, do you think there was a better book this year?
The thing is that might be the only romance that I read that came out that year.
Okay, a recent romance that is better. The one that you've read in the last 3 years.
I even think the romance in Fourth Wing, which isn't even focused on romance, is better.
Fourth Wing can't be better than 5 different genres. It can't fit into 5 different genres.
I have a feeling Emily Henry's just going to win the romance category every year from now until forever because she's just so popular. People are just going to read her because it's the next Emily Henry book. And people start collecting them and they're going to make a rainbow at some point because...
Next, it is the winner for Goodreads Best of 2023 Fantasy. This one is Hellbent, which is the second installment in the series. This one centers around a girl with a tattered past that can see ghosts, and she gets brought into the secret society world of Yale as basically this guardian that keeps the ghosts and the spirits away while the Yale secret societies conduct their rituals and experiments. You know, this one, I think actually Goodreads got it right in this one.
For fantasy.
But
this fantasy, is it rooted in like reality? Because
it's kind of like, I absolutely love this kind of book where it takes something that does exist and then mixes it with the surreal or the fantasy.
Yeah, I love that.
So I absolutely love that. These books are super gritty. They're super not for the faint of heart. They're very grimy and dirty. You will feel like you're going to feel like your heart got a little bit dirty by the time that you walk out of these books.
You're tainted?
Yeah, like you're tainted, but they are very, very, very engaging, and you do like to start to fall for the characters, mainly because, again, it does focus on around a few different characters and does really flesh them out, gives them all specific and differentiating characteristics that make you like those characters for different reasons. Not to mention that there is actually a love interest and love romance in this book, will they, won't they, that even I was able to be like, yeah, that's acceptable, that's engaging, I'll bite, it's fine. And actually, I think that the biggest...
You'll bite what?
I'll bite. But anyway, one of the biggest testaments to how good and engaging I think this book was is that the fact that it's the second in the series, and I haven't even read the first one. I kind of just jumped into the second one just to for the sake of the video. And honestly, I actually kind of like the experience because I do love it when you get dropped into a world without much explanation. That being said, I like the book, the second one, so much that I actually instantly went and got the first one just to experience that one. And the funniest part is that the first one actually kind of is a similar experience where they kind of drop you in without much explanation anyway. But I will say this, not everyone's gonna like this book. This book, honestly, it can be very off-putting.
Will I like it?
I think you will like it. There's a few scenes or a few comments or a few sentences in the books that will be so off-putting that you will literally be thinking about it for like a week.
Do you want to taint my soul?
Exactly. It is literally that. But again, it's kind of interesting that the book is dealing with the occult. It's dealing with rituals. It's dealing with like almost like dark magic. And yeah, you do feel a little darker after you finish reading them.
Why are you trying to darken my sunshine?
Yeah, darken your sunshine. But the thing that I will say about Hellbent and the series as a whole is that sometimes when something is really, really cruel or dark or grim and you get frustrated with it or you don't necessarily like it, is because you felt like it was unnecessary. Where in this series, all the grim and dark things that happen do feel like they coincide and they jive well with the theme and with the atmosphere that the books are trying to convey. And the author isn't just doing those things to put me off or to shock me or any of those things.
The last one was Memoir, which was the Britney Spears memoir. I listened to this one. While it was pretty quick and entertaining, and it was really interesting to see her childhood through her eyes and kind of reminisce and go back in time when, her stardom was starting, and see it through her eyes, her relationships with Justin Timberlake and Kevin Federline. This memoir was so surface level. I feel like if she truly had a good editor, a good ghostwriter, they should have dived much more deeply into her psyche, what she was feeling at the time, because it was very, what was me, this happened to me, and I was a victim, and she played the victim throughout the novel the entire time without really much explanation as to what exactly happened. There wasn't really anything in the memoir that wasn't already discussed in the documentary series Spears versus Spears. The memoir really gave her an opportunity to kind of show everyone how badly she was treated by her ex-husband, by her family, and how horrible it was to be part of the conservatorship. But it didn't really dive into how she wound up there. Just kind of matter of fact that, you know, there was a divorce. I got into a conservatorship. My dad did this. My mom did this. My ex-husband did this. But it's like, Brittany, what did you do? I mean, we all saw the headlines. We saw a lot of the stuff that happened play out through the tabloids. But there was no explanation as to how it got so bad that she ended up in a conservatorship.
So what you're saying is that somebody wrote an autobiography and decided to exclude all the moments where they might have been a little crazy or unhinged.
Yes. Anytime she kind of dived into it, it was very, you know, it wasn't that bad. I really didn't do anything. Playing the victim. Any of those scenes was everything was completely misunderstood. I never did any drugs. I never, you know, did that. That never actually happened. She talks about how hard it was for her kids to get taken away from her and how unfair and how hard that must have been for her, which understand. I get it. No matter what you did, that's gotta be hard. So yes, it went into that, but all it said was, it was so hard to have my kids taken away from me. But like, how does it get to the point that they take away the kid from the mom? Like, it didn't give, I think, a clear...
Like, what was the judge's reasoning?
Exactly. I feel like this was a fan service for her to kind of, you know, just say a whole lot of nothing. Nothing we didn't already know. Just her side of how horrible things were within the conservatorship, what she was allowed to do, what she wasn't allowed to do. She did dive into a lot of her experience with the paparazzi and being in the limelight and how things went from bad to worse, but not explaining, not taking accountability for the things that she did, even though I don't know what it was. I still don't know exactly what happened to land Britney Spears in a conservatorship. On my end, I thought she was, you know, she got into drugs and she started doing really, really bad things. But according to her, she didn't. So they don't take away your kids for no reason.
Britney alone.
You know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave Britney alone. I'm going to be like, okay, well, good for you. You got, you know, you did your little book, but it could have been a whole lot more. It was interesting to see her side of the story between her and Justin Timberlake, but that was pretty much the only nuance in the novel. And it also wasn't written well at all. So, should it win its best memoir? No. I was surprised that the Prince Harry one didn't win. Huh? Even though I've never read that one, and everyone loves Britney Spears. I love Britney Spears too. Did you know? Fun fact: my first CD ever was "Oops, I Did It Again."
Mine's too. It's not even a lie. No, actually, I think that was actually probably the first CD I had.
Where is it? Where are your CDs?
No, it was like a burnt CD that a friend gave me.
Oh, so I didn't have the picture of Britney in the front with me.
No, I did. They got printed. They printed it. You can ask my mom. I actually did like Britney Spears a lot. Excellent.
She's great. Her music was fantastic. Now it's all about Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift or Britney? Do you feel that if you were to follow Goodreads and Goodreads winners and recommendations from their best of 2023, do you think that is a good list to follow overall?
No.
That's why I married you. Good night, guys.